Good morning and welcome to day 3 of the FFI convention. Kicking things off with a big one. This session puts India at the center of the global supply chain map. Welcome to a new era in logistics, India and the world, where ambition meets acceleration and local meets global. Moderating this forward-looking session is researcher, strategist, Dr. Joshua Bennett. I request you, sir, to please come up on the dais. Let's give him a round of applause, please. I now request one by one our panelists to kindly join us on stage. Shri Sumit Giri, Ministry of Revenue, Bhutan. Mr. Oleg Kojinin, CCT. Please welcome, sir. Come. Mr. John Martin, Supply Chain. Please come first. Ms. Nora Mihail Goldman, welcome back. Mr. Vishal P. Mehta, CEO, Rushabh Sealing. He's yet to join. Now I hand over the proceedings to our moderator, Dr. Joshua Bennett. Sir, please. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's another beautiful day. Hall packed. I know that everybody is looking forward to hear the stalwarts of the global stage people. Wonderful. Thank you, FFI. Thank you, Dushan Bhai, and thank you, Shankar, and all the team members. This session, which we are going to talk about, exploring the evolving landscape of global logistics. I just recall a few years back when TFA came in, we all had one assurance that there is going to be a simplification, transparency and predictability. And people from OECD, World Bank, they all came and said, logistics is going to be a very smooth sail now. The global trade cost is going to come down significantly. But today, we see the other side, the disruption like the Red Sea disruption, the green corridors, the trade alliance, so many disturbances are happening around. I heard an interesting conversation when I was having a discussion with John. He said, gone are those days, logistics people were considered as a box keeper. Today, boardroom wants logistics people to be there inside the board because landed cost decisions are not so easy for them to take a decision where to invest, where to move ahead, where to change the supply chain. So in that prominent situation, I think we have a very beautiful panel. I would choose this is the best panel ever that I have moderated. From an international logistics firm, from a multilateral institution, regional government bodies, and from a diplomatic community. And I would like to help all of you to not only lean in, but also to ask questions and to engage with us. Since we have a shortage of time, as the culture says that we always give preference to women. There's only one woman, great woman, Nora, Dr. Nora is around us. So let's deep dive into the session as to how Dr. Nora is going to bring a perspective from the global stage. I'll just give a small brief about Dr. Nora. Dr. Nora is a senior economist and a trade consultant. She worked in World Bank, OECD, European Communion, and across Asia, Africa, Europe, and Middle East. And currently, if you see her recent work that she has done on trade facilitation and the role of digital tools, including AI, in reducing the trade cost and enhancing resilience in global value chain. So she has enormous in-depth understanding on global trade, and especially she works with governments. And even yesterday she was with Nidhi Aayog and she took a late flight and he came. So let us put up our good hand and welcome Dr. Nora to the first presentation. The flow is going to be like 4 of our panelists are going to make a PowerPoint presentation, followed by question answer dialogues, and if time permits, we'll come back to the audience as well. So lean in and enjoy the session. Over to you, Gurunara.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning, and it's really a great pleasure to be here with you. As the chairman introduced, I work with the World Bank, and for the last 5 years, I've been engaged in a trade facilitation program here in India. So I'm really glad to be here to discuss with the business sector what are the key issues affecting trade facilitation. So I prepared a few slides just to set the stage for our discussion. And here is what I propose to do. First, to look at the key challenges, the global challenges affecting trade, not only trade facilitation. And to look at what are the key pressures, what are the challenges, but also the opportunities globally. And then I will move on to discuss what does it mean for trade facilitation. How can trade facilitation adapt to address some of these challenges and to seize the opportunities? And finally, I will discuss a little bit the next steps for India. How can India adapt, and what is the role of trade facilitation in adapting to this new global context where geopolitics becomes so important? So let's start with the key developments. And after COVID, we saw that trade increased dramatically. But because of the recent trade barriers which are being put in place, merchandise trade, especially merchandise trade, is facing some headwinds. Sorry. Can you hear me all right? Yes? So if you look at the latest analysis done by the World Trade Organization, we see that the volume of merchandise trade is projected to decline by 0.2% in 2025. And that is almost 3 percentage points lower than it would have been without the recent policy shifts. So we are expecting a small rebound in 2026 of 2.5%, but it's still below of what would have been without the distortions. Another important point to make is that because of these policy disruptions, we see that uncertainty is becoming a huge issue for businesses. If you look on your right-hand side, you will see that as of March, for the first time in a number of years, trade policy disruptions are at the same level in terms of disruptions as geopolitical issues. So the trade policy disruptions are as important as wars, for instance. And so I guess these are important consequences for businesses. Then if we move on, I would like to talk a little bit about the trade policy environment. And before discussing tariffs, we see that there is an increase in protectionism over the past 10 years. And I'm not talking only about tariffs, all type of trade distortions, regulatory issues, non-tariff barriers. And you can see that the leaders are actually the developed countries, but both developed and developing countries are imposing more protectionist measures. And then a few words about the tariffs. I tried to capture, actually it's not me, it's the Peterson Institute that provided the graph on the right-hand side, just to have a snapshot of the tariff increases which happened over the last several months. And to summarize, so if you look at US tariffs vis-à-vis China as of May 14, so this is the status in May 14, we have tariffs of about 50%, covering 100% of imports from China. And China is imposing about 32% tariffs on US imports. So that's US, China. If we look at US, the rest of the world, it's 10%. So the tariffs on the rest of the world, including for India, and the situation will change in the absence of a tariff agreement by July. And I'm mentioning this because this is a huge increase as compared to what we had in January 2025, where US tariffs, the average US tariffs were 3%. So such high tariffs will have obviously an impact on businesses. Now, moving on, I think green trade pressures are becoming very important, more important, especially for countries such as India. So what I tried to highlight in this graph is to see how carbon competitive are different countries. And you see that some countries, some developing, some emerging economies are performing better than others, including better than India. So what we can see here is that India is facing higher emission intensity in production. And this will become very challenging, especially as the main exporting destinations are tightening environmental standards. And it's important to introduce different carbon border adjustments. So adopting cleaner technologies will become extremely important, especially for countries such as India, because we see it's not performing very well. Now, these were the challenges, but let me also say something about the opportunities, because digitization really offers transformational opportunities. And I will start with services, because digital trade and digital services are very important. And the good news is that these services, and especially digital services, are much more resilient than trade in goods. They are not affected by tariffs, but in general, services tend to be more resilient. So that's good news for trade in this digital area. And the other good news here is that India is also performing very well when it comes to the technology index. India is also a major exporter, including of digital services, so this is an area where the country can really focus on to exploit new opportunities. So that's in a nutshell what I wanted to say about the global challenges that we are facing in the broader trade sphere, not only about trade facilitation. So what about trade facilitation? So first of all, when it comes to trade facilitation and logistics, this is an agenda that is evolving, and it's requiring a very adaptive and forward-looking reform. So the traditional approach is to look at trade facilitation and transport together, because it is important to make sure that we see reforms in both areas. But that approach needs to be upgraded. And how? Well, we have to take into account, when we speak about trade and infrastructure reforms, how to enable them digitally, how to make all these regulations and infrastructures more climate resilient, given all the challenges and opportunities which I mentioned, and how to make sure that we have policy integrated solutions. So it's still about trade and transport, but in a more adaptive way, and in looking at making sure that resilience, regional integration is enforced, that we have green compliance, and that we also facilitate technology adoption. So that's about the trade facilitation and logistics concept, and this is how the World Bank is actually looking at all these issues. Now, if we move on to digital trade, so as I said, digitization offers great opportunities. And when it comes to trade facilitation, what we see is that automation, AI, availability of real-time data, it's really transforming the business. So we are looking at customs and border automation, electronic single windows, logistics collaboration tools to make all the processes more rapid, and really to get lower trade costs. When we talk about digitization, it's important to mention e-commerce. And it is important for the whole economy, but also for small and medium enterprises, including also micro enterprises. So this is an area that brings great opportunity for the smaller players. And I think it is important to look at how to eliminate the logistics bottlenecks faced in e-commerce, especially for the small players. What we see is a lack of risk-based clearance frameworks, and we see lack of digital data systems. So addressing these gaps, addressing these challenges, and trying to implement some simplified procedures, some advanced electronic data, some interagency data sharing will be extremely important. Also making sure that we have clear de minimis thresholds and streamlining the rules of origins. Also trying to encourage the participation of the smaller enterprises, smaller e-commerce firms into AO programs. So I mentioned that over the past 5 years I was engaged in a trade facilitation project in India, and the AO component was extremely important, and the focus on trying to get more SMEs and MSMEs, including in e-commerce, into the AO program was extremely important. Now, finally, about mitigating the green trade pressure risks. So, what does it mean for trade facilitation? It means that global logistics will require faster and more adaptive trade facilitation. And it is important to ensure traceability and compliance infrastructure, especially as higher standards are being imposed in main destination countries. Again, this is something that the World Bank does, not only in trade facilitation, also in more extensive reports where we are looking at country climate and development reports, but it is an important part of all the trade facilitation projects. So, in a nutshell, I would say that digitization and making sure that climate change and supply chain resilience is incorporated into trade facilitation are the key issues at this stage. They're related to the global developments, but also to the technological developments that we are seeing. So let me end with 2 slides about India, because I think when it comes to the trade and trade facilitation agenda, it's important to highlight that India made very good progress in the trade facilitation space. So if you look at the evolution of the Logistics Performance Index between 2014 and 2023, you will see the big improvement made by India. In 2023, India is number 38 in the world. So a lot has been done, to reduce these trade costs. And I also have some information on the import release times that have decreased consistently over the last 3 to 4 years. So a lot of progress has been made, and this is important because irrespective of what will happen at the global level, what type of distortions will be introduced, what type of coalitions will be formed, trade facilitation will remain important to be a key player. Reducing trade costs will pay off no matter what happens globally. So I think continuing with the trade facilitation agenda is important. And so this brings me to my last slide, where I tried to summarize in 3 buckets what could be done in terms of trade and trade facilitation policy for India in the new context. And as you can see, the key recommendation is that reforms in the area of trade facilitation should continue. There is progress, but much more needs to be done. And as I mentioned in my presentation, focus on digitization and paperless trade programs is extremely important. Actually, this is also the demand that we are receiving as part of our World Bank program to continue this process with a big focus on digitization. Then when it comes to broader trade policy issues, which need to be coordinated with trade facilitation, the previous agenda on reducing trade barriers will remain important. Reducing tariffs is important because India has very high tariffs on intermediate inputs, and this is problematic for participation in global value chains. So reducing tariffs will remain important, reducing non-tariff barriers, addressing some of the regulatory issues in services to make sure that India can thrive even more when it comes to services trade. So that's really a key issue, and the agenda of global value chains is extremely important. Yesterday I had a similar discussion at NITI, and the emphasis on global value chains, increasing participation in global value chains and participating in higher value chains is really high on the agenda. And that's why reform needs to continue. Now, when it comes to the third column, how can we rethink a bit the international engagements in the current context? India has already started re-engaging in the form of free trade agreements over the past years. So we had the FTA with Australia, there are discussions with the UAE, and probably as a result of the new trade distortions, there was also an accelerated path for discussions with the UK, with the EU. So I think it is important for the country to remain engaged with willing partners, because access to those markets is important, but at the same time, some mitigating risks will remain equally important. And my final point is that we see that bilateral and regional agreements will become important, perhaps also considering some of the bigger regional agreements in the Asia region will create market access to India. But everything should be done in the framework of a rules-based system. This will remain important. India is a major player. It can have a strong voice in reforming this global system, the WTO, as needed. But rules-based system will remain important. So let me stop here, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hello. We now have our advisor and former chairman, Shri A.V. Vijay Kumar, among us. I would request Vijay Kumarji to kindly join us on dais, please. Sir, please.
Welcome, Mr. Vijay Kumar. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a fantastic perspective which Dr. Nora brought out to us. She brought out how trade facilitation played a vital role, and especially no other than World Bank is focusing along with the Indian government and reading how the predictions, how the simplifications, how the global trade cost is achieved. That's an amazing insight. Followed by CBAM, how exporters needs to be gearing up, and also with the changing trend, how free trade agreements plays a role, and especially in WCO in the month of February, they gathered and gave life to Annexure K, how that moves to digitalization. That brought out a very good perspective. I'm sure how digitization along with the new FTAs are going to shape up. So one follow-up question to Dr. Nora. If OECD data or other TFA data are showing the cross-border agencies improvements, based on your working with the developing economies, what policy levers should India strengthen to sustain and scale these gains, especially for the MSME sectors? Any thoughts?
So, as we mentioned, SMEs and MSMEs are becoming increasingly important in terms of the trade agenda and the trade facilitation agenda. So when we think about trade facilitation, making sure that, let's say, traceability is there and it's easy for MSMEs and SMEs to comply with different standards will make a big difference. Another point is access to information for these SMEs and MSMEs. We see that it's relevant in absolutely all sectors. So, in a way, think about think all the policy recommendations, reducing global trade barriers, rethinking the engagement globally are still important, but then looking at what needs to be done to include them, traceability, access to information, making it easier to deal with all the customs procedures, having clarity on where we spoke about digital, the minimis rules, so some targeted regulations will be also important. That's in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Beautiful perspective. All right, audience, I hope you enjoyed this first perspective from World Bank. Now up next, we will shift the gear from a multilateral policy to a private sector innovation. We have John Martin. I had a few minutes of discussion, completely energized. The perspectives what he carries from boardrooms and his background. Let me just give you a brief introduction about John Martin. John Martin is the Chief Revenue Officer in Lychee Network. He has more than 3 decades of experience in global trade, logistics, supply chain, transportation. He is also a former US Marine Corps Logistics Officer. He heads leadership roles in Apple Logistics, American Airlines, Agility Logistics, now part of DSP. Martin also contributed academically, giving lectures at MITs and US Marine Corps universities. His global perspective on innovation-driven approach makes him a powerful voice in the global market. So let's put up our hand and we will welcome John Martin to take the stage and deliver his presentation. While John goes up to the stage, I thought of telling you, I just got a message. It says, logistics. Let's overcome global impact simply through innovation, collaboration, and seamless lines. So John is here to unfold how that is going to be in real. Over to you, John.
Thank you very much. Thrilled to be here. And I really want to say to Harsh and Sagar and Shankar and Tej and Chairman Desian, you've been wonderful hosts. So I'm grateful for that. You made me feel very welcome. And I feel like freight forwarders, we talked about one of the major themes being partnership. We seem to partner well with each other. We seem to collaborate well with each other. I remember early in the industry, I was nervous one time thinking that going to see Kuranako, going to see my competitor on a customs issue, and we all turned out to be more collegial than we were competitive, right? So we fought over the business, but we ended up being mates, if you will, friends. So quickly, and one quick personal comment. So in my life, I've spent 35, 40 years on the road, 200 days a year of travel. So I've spent over 4,000 nights in hotels, 80 countries I've been to. And I've got to say that 2 of my favorite hotels are both in India, right? The Oberoi in Bangalore and the Taj. So hats off to you for that. So quickly, we're going to talk about a couple things that are happening. One of the themes that I'm going to come back to over and over is speed. I think there's a great book by Boston Consulting Group, George Stalk, in about 1980, and this was a Bible at Apple, one of Steve and Tim's favorite books, Competing Against Time. So, and I encourage you to read the book. And so, we compete with other countries, we compete with other industries, but the main thing we're competing against is the clock. You've always got a clock on your back. So if you look at the 2048 vision, and a lot of this was spoken about in some of the earlier panel discussions, but getting to a $26 trillion economy by 2048 is a big task, but it's going to require a lot of logistics capacity, so a lot of growth, a lot of optimization. So thank you to Nora and her team for putting together great statistics. The logistics performance index is something we look at closely, and if you can see, India scores pretty well on most of the categories. So a couple of things, as Nora said, getting to the top 25 in the LPI rankings is certainly a goal in the next 5 years, 4.5 now. I think you're well on your way to digitization, and one of the things that I was tasked with is talk about global best practices, and I've got to tell you, during the week I've reassessed where I think we are, and I'm nervous a little bit because I think the United States is falling behind, and I think India, I've seen more digital evidence happening quickly here than I do in the United States. And I think one of the things, we have a great 50-state reciprocity in the United States, right? It's one of the but one of the problems we have is that we are incredibly domestically focused, right? One of the privileges of having a huge domestic market is that a lot of companies never even looked international, right? Canada and Mexico are bordering countries, and a lot of companies don't even ship to Canada and Mexico. So, you know, the US market is kind of insular and homogenous. And I think one of the things that distinguishes India is that you've got literally hundreds, you know, even historically thousands of years where you're traders. You know how to do this. It's in your culture. So we kind of got lulled in the United States after World War II into thinking that you know, domestic trade would be enough for us. And I think we're struggling, honestly, to get to where we need to be. And we can talk a little bit more about tariffs if we have time. So in this era, friendshoring is something that I think is going to happen, right? We can do a deep dive on Apple if we have time. But to some degree, in Nora's presentation, we were talking about the tariffs, but we've been embargoed, right? It's hard to sell John Deere tractors in India, right? In China, for example. You know, we do a great business in India. John Deere is a big plant and a big R&D center, and a lot of the IT work happens in Pune. But in any case, you know, there's a lot of American product that we just can't sell in China. So I don't know how you score that in a tariff index, and not to defend President Trump, or I think that the United States needs to be a reliable trading partner, and right now we're confusing the markets. Right, so hopefully we can get to stability quickly. I think there's a lot of shock and awe to try to get people softened up in the negotiations, and but you can't do too much of that without losing credibility. So I think we're in a little bit of a danger area right now, and I'm hopeful that we can resolve these trade issues quickly. I would love to see reciprocal trade or even free trade. I think Nora made some very good points about why that's important to all of us. So we don't want to add friction. We don't want to pour sand in the gearbox. We want to lubricate it, right? We want to facilitate trade, not put up barriers to trade. So this has been talked about several times this week, but percentage of GDP, I think everyone in the room is aware of that, is to get it down to where, at least where the BRICS are and where China and the US are. The United States as a single country, right now the EU is still the largest trading partner as a trading bloc, but the United States is still the largest single country with 20% of your exports, followed by the UAE, which is and China, et cetera, the UK. But the growth projections, we're looking at, I was sitting at breakfast and saying, you can tell a lot about our current president by his calendar, right? Actions reveal your priorities. And so within 10 days of President Trump being inaugurated, he didn't go to Canada, he didn't go to Mexico, he didn't go to the UK, he didn't go to Israel. He invited Prime Minister Modi to the White House. First foreign head of state to visit in his new presidency. So I think there's a personal relationship there, and I'm hopeful that the commitments that they made for $500 billion, one thing thing you can say about Trump is he puts his money where his mouth is, right? So we're committed. And I can tell you, just being in that ecosystem, we're getting a lot of pressure, but we're also being encouraged. So thank you very much for the invitation, because it's very timely. And I hope we can make those connections, right? And there's some geopolitics involved between China and Pakistan that are kind of exacerbating the situation. But anyway, we're natural allies. We need to put some steam behind that from the United States side, put our money where our mouth is. So the current trade, 130 billion, the target of 500 billion, 4x growth rate within 4.5 years. So this is significant. So the infrastructure has to be there. And one of the things in my experience, I spent a lot of time in agility in my career. And at that time, agility and expediters were about the same size. We both were in 5-6 billion USD in annual revenue. We had 26,000 employees in agility, and expeditors had 12,000 employees. And whenever we got a new customer, we had to hire $60,000 a year entry writers and clerks and people who are knowledgeable in business. And expeditors could scale the business without having to hire people. So that's one of the things about digital, is speed of adoption and then scalability. You can't really scale if you have to hire, train, teach, and onboard staff while you're onboarding customers. So digital makes that much easier. And so the revenue per employee at Expeditors was twice the revenue per employee at Agility. So quickly, a couple of things. We rely on you heavily in the rare earths category in electrical machinery. Obviously, pharma. 40% of the pharma in the United States comes from India. So that's significant. You're a very important source for us there. But that will diversify. The other thing that I think is very important, and I won't damn any other countries, but I will say everyone in this room knows somebody that writes software for a living. Right? I grew up in Silicon Valley. Most of my friends, we didn't steal movies. We didn't steal songs. We paid $1.29 to bought a song on iTunes. Right? We paid for intellectual property because we made our living on intellectual property. Right? What's a drug? A drug is intellectual property. A drug is a recipe. Right? So intellectual property is very, very important, and it's 40% of our GDP in the United States, so we take it very seriously. And we're very pleased that India has since you're now one of the world's largest software producers, you also take it very seriously, because that's your intellectual property. So a couple of the challenges, right? In my career, 30 years ago, it was tough, honestly, to do business with India. I think I was telling Chairman Malani this morning, and he said, what was the first time you came to India? And I said it was 1996 in Bangalore. And it looked like this, right? It was challenging for us. But I think in that period of time, in my lifetime, you've made tremendous strides, especially with customs, right? So I think that what was considered to be a challenge and a puzzle for us in the past has you've streamlined it a great deal and taken some of the fear out of it for us. And I think one of the things we talked about at breakfast as well is, you've heard, probably many of you have heard me tell the story, but Customs House brokers are now spending time in front of the C-suite, the executive committee, and the board of directors, because that's the repository of data for landed cost models. Right? When the CEO says, should I do my sourcing and my procurement in Vietnam? Should I do my outsourced manufacturing in China with the tariffs? Give me a total landed cost inclusive of the tariffs, right? So help me make that decision. And honestly, in the past, a lot of that data sat in 4 or 5 different discrete databases. And really, Customs was the only place where that got rolled up. So very quickly, Smart Cargo, I want to talk about this because I can't impact the port, I can't impact the railway, I can't, I can put pressure on some airports in the US, but I can't get an industrial revenue bond. So some of the things are out of our control. But digital, we can do by the end of the quarter. Right? Let SAP be SAP, let Oracle be Oracle, let CargoWise be CargoWise. But let me do an API and buy a subscription or pay by the drink and use the FIATA electronic bill of lading, right, for $1. So I can do that tomorrow. So I think digitization is something we all have control over. So I'm a huge fan of the electronic bill of lading, and so I really endorse the FIATA and the FFFAI approach to this. Right? You've got an API that all your members can take advantage of. We don't have that in the United States, and that's the kind of leadership I think that you're driving that we need to emulate. Again, as I said earlier, we have 50 states. Every city is autonomous. So the United States, we have a lot of freedoms. But when it comes to airports and ocean ports, they are owned by the cities. You know, Chicago owns O'Hare, Atlanta owns Hartsfield, right? Port Authority of New York, New Jersey owns JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark. Same thing with the ports. So we don't have kind of a regulatory body that can offer leadership. We kind of wait for a unicorn or wait for a best practice to emerge, and then everybody kind of, you know, it's like watching eight-year-olds play soccer, right? Everybody swarms on the ball, but what's below the line there says once took 5 days with paper, now it takes 5 minutes with digital. The other thing that digital allows is digital platforms allow monitoring. Right? And this becomes very important. I think a lot of the speakers during the week talked about contingency planning, right? When things happen, right? COVID happened to us in the last couple of years, right? Disruptions happen. You know, the Suez Canal was mentioned several times. The Panama Canal was mentioned several times. But contingency planning, when you have the data in an air traffic control type simulator, or when you have that kind of real-time data connecting all of the points. And one of the things that we're focused on in my current role is, you know, once something gets to NYK lines, NYK or CMA, you know, any of the Mediterranean, any of the big lines have excellent systems. So they can tell you exactly where the ship is, what the ETA at the port is. And so from the time it's loaded on board to the time it gets unloaded, you have very good data. But prior to that, in 2 or 3 different languages and several currencies, and after that, so in that entire voyage, there's 36 to 40 steps in ocean freight shipping. And then if you try to do an analog in the air freight world, you have DHL, FedEx, and UPS especially, they do door-to-door tracking. So we all want that kind of door-to-door, where is it, that predictability, that knowledge of where is my shipment right now. So I think that digital platforms are going to make that commonplace. So I have some controversial views on green, but I'll summarize it to say this: the best way to get to sustainability, our new Environmental Protection Agency chief, Lee Zeldin, said that sustainability without profitability is not sustainable. Right? If I go broke, all of my sustainability, all of my ESG score means nothing. Right? So we have to do this in the most efficient way that we can do it. So I would ask for common sense, and I think that beyond ESG scores, beyond carbon credits, beyond any of the measurements that we are asked to do, you know, look at your grandchildren, right? One of the things in any religion is that we look at nature, and nature is one of the ways that the divine is revealed to us in any religion. So let's take care of the environment, let's use common sense, but the first priority is to be more efficient. And one of the best ways to be more efficient is to be digital, right? So that's my quick quick take on GreenPath. But the other thing I would say is let's start to question. We kind of accepted blindly the World Economic Forum and some of the EU standards, the 2030 standards. But you can't question them without being labeled a denier, right? You're a climate denier. No, let's just look at it holistically, and let's look at it over a longer-term point of view. I think that the Volkswagen case, the Valve case, is a famous one in that regard, where they actually were more efficient, but they were in violation of the EPA standards for the United States. So, what's the road ahead? I think that the people in this room are driving standards, so I wish we had that equivalent in the United States. So I think you're in a world leadership position here. I think a lot of the innovation, when I came here in 1996 to Bangalore, it was a completely different era. And now I've really had to reassess during this week here. I think that you're in a very good position, actually, right? And I think the United States is somewhat falling behind, so I'm concerned about that. So I think we need to learn from you. So I'm going to be asking you over the next year or two for your help, and hopefully we'll be back as a sponsor in 2 years, and we can show you some of the best practices from India that we've adopted in the United States. And lastly, I think operational excellence, on-time performance, quality, right? People forget about low pricing. If the only value you offer is a race to the bottom and you're the cheapest, none of us want to be there, right? So deliver quality and demand a decent rate. None of us want to be in a race to the bottom. And we all talked about one of the themes is building collaborative networks. And I have just one quick comment about that is partnerships are just poetic romances unless you're both making money for each other. Right? So make enough money that you can afford a business class ticket to go to Russia and meet your counterpart. Right? Make enough money where it becomes important enough to sit at each other's planning table. So alliances and alignment are very important, but make sure that you both make money on the deal. Right? So I'll wind it up by just saying we live in a global economy in an information age. When I was at Apple, Steve Jobs told us that every week. Global economy, information age. So we all have to think globally, and we are in the information age, and I think we can all see that throughout the course of the week. But in one final note of thanks, my gosh, what a great week this has been. I've been through all the sessions, and I gotta tell you, I'm gonna go buy Captain Roman's book, Every Man's War. Was that fantastic yesterday? I really enjoyed that. And one of the other ones that stood out to me was the Train 18, railway design. So I think we've had a great week of speakers, and I'm pleased and thrilled to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. John Martin. You brought in some very good insights from your time with Apple and Agility. I want to pick your brain on one question, follow-up question. What specific digital innovation do you believe that India should prioritize for a leapfrog into the logistics competitiveness?
So I was lucky enough when I was at American Airlines to be part of the IATA Spec 2000 committee. We had Sabre at American, and so we invested a lot a long time ago. And the air freight industry, I would say, is somewhat ahead. It's a little bit more of a homogeneous industry. But I would say the digital standards, the e-bill of lading is one of the most important things. And I'm sure everyone in the room is spending a lot of time with AI. And I'm an old guy, so I can say this, but back when I was in Boston at MIT, we had computer chips, right? You remember when Kasparov got beat by Deep Blue, right? I was there. So that's all. But anyway, so big data doesn't work without lots of data, and big data doesn't work with paper. So getting that electronic bill of lading allows you to get that data into a digital form where you can actually do things with it, right? Where you can actually make predictive analytics requires massive amounts of data. I'll give you a quick example. We did an exercise a long time ago. We have 100 years of Dow Jones data, very good data. A little closer, sorry. So we have over 100 years of Dow Jones industrial average data. Every day we have a closing price. We have a huge data set. And believe it or not, it's not enough data to do an effective predictive analytic. We can train a model that would perfectly fit the curve for past performance, and we would ask it to predict tomorrow or next month's Dow Jones average. It was meaningless. So getting enough data, but I think if you look around the freight business, there's a lot of data there. But will it be enough to do effective predictive analytics? I don't know. So, but it won't, paper does not become big data until it's digitized.
Thank you, John, for this wonderful perspective. I hope audience will answer questions for you. We'll now move to another panelist by name Vishal Mehta. Vishal Mehta is the CEO for Rishabh Sealing, and he brings about 2 decades of experience. He traveled around 8 countries, having important position like an advisor to the Prime Minister of Djibouti and the Chairman of Djibouti Chamber of Commerce. He is also a recipient of numerous recognition. The one noteworthy to say, Medal of Honor 2025 by the Consular Corps for his outstanding contribution to bilateral trade relation. Let's put up our hand and welcome Vishal. Vishal, we're so glad to have you here amongst us. Mr. Vishal Mehta, so we would like to ask a question. Based on your experience in Africa, what logistics corridors between India and Africa hold the most promise over the next 5 to 10 years? Just keep a little closer. Check.
Hello.
Yeah, yes, good.
Thank you everyone. And first of all, big gratitude to Mr. Dushyant and Shankar Shinde, Sailesh Bhai. The way Modi ji has given a seat to Africa Union in G20, you consider giving a seat to Africa in this panel, in this discussion. Thank you very much. Coming to the question, so Africa is a continent, and Africa consists of 54 countries. Now, each country has its own pace, its own policy, and its own potential. So Africa doesn't fit one solution for everybody. You need to be super clear about which part of Africa you are dealing with. You need to understand the culture, the mindset, the mentality. Most important, you need to remove one misconception. Africa means dangerous. I have been dealing with African countries for the last 14 years. I've been traveling to African countries for the last 14 years. And we have seen great opportunities in terms of which corridor. So for us as Rishabh Sealing, we are super focused on East and West Africa. East Africa, we are serving via Djibouti, Mombasa and Kenya. And our biggest client is Ethiopia. Ethiopia is second biggest populated country in Africa. And West Africa, we are very, very active in Senegal, Guinea-Bissau, and Nigeria. Nigeria is the first most populated country in Africa. So these are the 2 corridors which we are very serious about. Another thing, I don't know how many of you have heard about Africa Free Trade Corridor. Now, this corridor is a game changer. It opens a market of $3.4 trillion, and it gives you access to 1.4 billion people. This is the biggest free trade area which has been developed so far. So this is the answer to your question.
Thank you, Vishalji. Follow another question. How can Indian companies strategically position themselves in African supply chain while addressing their complex regulatory and infrastructure and cultural differences, especially the point that you brought in, the significant African Union free trade? 53 countries together coming in, 54 countries coming together. So So that's something, an amazing thing. So what recommendation that you have for Indian graduates?
So your one question has three questions. So we'll go one by one. First, how do we position ourselves? I believe most of us positioning India, our Prime Minister is doing that for us. Now, what we need to do is position our company, and that I believe in last 10 years, 20 years, Indian logistics is recognized everywhere. Our players are taken very seriously globally. Indians have now become multinationals. We have started venturing out, taking over companies there. So, to position, I would say anybody who's interested in Africa or in future, whenever they feel like venturing out in Africa, I would sincerely suggest each one of you to travel, to take vacations to Africa, understand their culture, their mindset, walk the boat, move around to the markets, understand how they think. While you understand and explore everything, you'll be able to figure out the challenges and the infrastructure shortage that Africa has. Now, as any business house, you find a problem, you find a solution. And the day you find a solution, trust me, Africa is all about people, people and people. Once you are able to bring relationship, you will start generating revenue. The day you build trust, you will build a lot of trade. And that is how Africa is. It's more than Excel, it's more than SOP. Africa is all about people. It's about connection, your intention. So positioning, I think so, as an honorary council and as a chamber of commerce, we are doing everything to position Indian companies, not only logistics, but Indian company by and large. And culturally, I think so there is no difference. I believe we are the closest one. When you start being with them, living with them, you realize we think alike. We have a lot of things which is in common. Like we call dawa medicine, they also call dawa. Okay, we play music not only for entertainment, for worship and prayers. They also do the same thing. So there is a lot of similarity. Culturally, I don't see there is anything that we really need to redo.
Yeah. Thank you. So from the vantage point of Honorary Consul of Djibouti, what role do diplomatic and trade facilitation efforts play? For example, since World Bank is also here, India never opted for C category, but a lot of developing countries opted for it. And countries in Africa, they opted for this capacity building. So how trade facilitation can give a handle, like India being a donor country, how you can leverage those opportunities to scale up? Any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So yeah, my role, if I have to read by the books, is to develop bilateral and cultural trade. But this position is honorary council. So typically I'll always think as a businessman also. So if you go back and see, China has a strong presence in Africa, in each and every country of Africa. Now what comes as a honorary council, my role and responsibility is to ensure Indian companies are visible, they are represented and they are respected in Africa. And likewise, they need to be respected in India. Now for this, what do we do? So in a year, we take 2 delegations to African, different country of Africa, where they start people-to-people engagement, government-to-government engagement. And once there is engagement between people, business, trade happens automatically. So this is initiative that we have taken, and what are the results of this initiative? So for each one of us, most of our health tourism business has moved to Turkey in last few years. After representing, going back, in last 2 years we are able to bring back 14% of the health tourism back to India. That is the efforts what we have put and the results that we have got. Education, we always think Africa only speaks French. No, Africa 40% they speak French, the 35% they do speak English. So we are diverting student traffic from rest of the part of the world to India. Now, what are we giving back? This is what we got in. What we are doing is we have been able to help a a large business house from Mumbai to take over a cement plant in Africa. A large business house who is going to develop about 1,000 villas in Africa. And now coming to logistics, because all this, what I have been and what I have achieved is because of this trucking and logistics industry that I am here. So for each one of you sitting here, any handholding in terms of logistics, the silliest question about Africa, personally I'll be more than happy to guide whosoever needs the guidance. One, there is going to be a detailed Africa session on the 20th of June. There is another event, and I would through Dushan Bhai, if anybody has specific questions, because you are short of time, the 20th June event is all about Africa. They can write us questions now, and we will be able to answer each one of them, which will be more business related and business centric. So these are a few things that I'm doing, and please guide me, help me. If I need to improve, I need to do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that good invitation. I'm sure the trade will make use of that invitation. Thank you for your nice perspective. All right. So now we will move to our next speaker, who brings in 2 decades of first-hand customs and border management experience, who is also the most trusted partners and neighbor country from Bhutan. Mr. Sumit Giri is a Public Information Service Department of Revenue and Customs Officer with 2 decades of experience in trade facilitation, revenue intelligence, cross-border logistics. Since joining the Bhutan government in customs, he has served key regional positions, Deputy Commissioner, and to mention very specifically, he got trained by NACEN, Indian Customs Officers in Faridabad, and now currently he is heading customs modernization effort and a close coordination with India. So let's put up our hand and welcome Mr. Sumit Giri to share his presentation.
Very good morning to you all. Firstly, I would like to thank the chairman of FFICA, Shri Dushan Mulani and Shankar Shindeji for inviting me in such a global forum. I'm very much excited, and also I'm very much grateful that I could be here in front of you all, because you people are the one who brings comfort in our homes, whether in Bhutan or India. You people play a very important role. I must say, being working with the customs, the clearing and forwarding agencies play a very vital role. You all are the main people behind the economy of any nation. Because of you all, we get what we need. And it is because of your hard work that people enjoy. So I would like to thank each and every one of you all for doing a fantastic job that builds nation. So now let me start with my presentation. Okay, as you all know, a new era in logistics, India and world. India plays a very important role. The logistics sector stands as a transformative revolution. You all imagine, when you all started your work 50 years back, how the logistic was and what it is now is completely different. The era is defined by innovation, resilience and sustainability, reshaping the goods across borders. And this is done by whom? This is done by you all. And this federation plays a very important role in the economy. Now, in India's logistic revolution, let me just give you all a brief. I know you all are very much aware. The PM Gati Shakti, that is actually integrating infrastructure planning for seamless connectivity across the nation. Second is the National Logistic Policy. This is, I think, to aim to reduce logistic costs from 14% to 8% of GDP and to elevate India's global ranking. The Sagarmala and Bharatmala, which is like enhancing port-led development and creating robust and multi-modal connectivity network, because of which Bhutan also benefits. The most important is the digital transformation, the e-way bills, FASTag, UNIP, making Indian logistics faster and more efficient. Now, as you all are aware, in Bhutan, we are now going to build a mindfulness city, the Gelfu Mindfulness City. That is the vision of our present king, through which a lot of modern facilities, a modern township is going to be built, where logistics is going to play a very vital role, where we need your support, for which we can, fulfill the vision of our king. The global trend in reshaping, this is the digitalization and AI, as Madam Laura already talked about that, right? The blockchain, predictive analytics, optimizing of supply chain globally, this is going to be very important and key factor in the new era of logistics. Sustainability, as you all are very much aware, green logistics and carbon neutral warehousing becoming an industry standard is very important and is going to play a key vital role. Resilience, post-pandemic diversification strategies that is going to redefine the global trade. As you all know, COVID gave a nightmare to us, not only to India or Bhutan, to the global markets. And now we need to come up with more stronger strategies to face post-pandemic. E-commerce boom, as you all are knowing, last mile delivery innovations responding on evolving consumer demand is also playing a key vital role. Here I just want to highlight India's strategic advantages. First, India's global logistic hub is poised to become a logistic center point of the 21st century, where India is going to play a key vital role through which all the other countries are going to benefit, especially Bhutan. You all are going to be the manufacturing growth, Make India and PLI scheme, boosting production and capacity. Geographic position, strategic location, east and west trade routes, where you all are strategically located. India's unique position at the crossroad of major shipping lane gives it a natural advantage. The country is leveraging this with infrastructure development and policy reforms. And this can be done through the clearing and forwarding agents. The custom brokers, CFAs, play a very important role in this. Infrastructure transformation, I think you all know, dedicated freight corridors, revolutionizing rail cargo movement with high speed, high capacity network, you all are doing it with highway networks, Asian highways, extensive road projects that are going on. This will enhance connectivity to remote regions and make economy viable. Goods will move from point A to B within a short span of time, reducing costs, thereby the people can enjoy. Then you have the port modernization, which is very important. The Jawaharlal Nehru and the minor one, the fastest growing ports. Air cargo expansion, that's also going on very fast. The capacity is set to triplate by 2030 with new airports and cargo facilities, which India is doing a remarkable job. Now the challenges to overcome, which you people are very much aware. I need not to talk much, but just to give an insight. High logistic cost always significantly above the global benchmark. You all cannot do much, but you all can facilitate. Workforce skilling, very much important, capacity building. Need to take shabby logistic professionalism, which is happening. The last mile connectivity, rural access remains a critical challenge still today. Despite progress, these changes require focused attention. Addressing them will unlock India's future potential as the logistics powerhouse on the global stage. Now the collaborative path forward, three important factors: the government role, industry's contribution, and global partnership. Global partnership means we need to have knowledge transfer, investment opportunities, trade facilitation, which all the speakers have been talking about. Industry contribution, technical expertise needed, best practice adoption should be there, innovation leadership should be there. Government role, policy formulation, infrastructure development, regulatory framework, which you all are very much aware. Collaboration between the stakeholders will accelerate India's logistic transformation. FFAI plays a crucial role in facilitating this vital partnership and ecosystem. Reimagining India's logistic future. 8% target logistic cost, top 25 global ranking goals, 3x air cargo growth. By 8%, I mean to say, it's reduced from 14% of GDP, from the current 14% of GDP to 8. Top 25, the Logistic Performance Index, you are in the top 25. 3x air cargo growth expected by 2030, which I know you all will achieve. The new era in logistics will be a catalyst for economic growth, sustainability, and global integration. Together, we will propel India to the forefront of world stage, and hopefully this will happen very soon. Thank you very much. In a key conclusion, I would also like to put a word for my dear friend, Mr. Mandu Chaudhary of Masum. He was a very good friend of Bhutan because he had really helped us in times of need in the clearing and logistic era. He brings in a wide range of expertise. I'm here openly in this forum going to thank him for helping Bhutan in any time, because his clearing and forwarding agency has really helped us. Why I want to put on his name here is there is a reason behind. Clearing and customs agent, broker or FFIA, you all work very good with customs. And I just remember way back in 2020, we had the royal wedding in Bhutan. Our things landed up the NSB port in Kolkata. Everything was closed because of Durga Puja. This man, we approached central government, we approached Indian Customs, and from there he was nominated. A clearing agent came in between, and then he said, okay, we will help you out. Personal relations helped a very important role. And because of it, I don't know what he did, but in 3 days, my cargo to Bhutan, royal consignment, was cleared. He followed everything. Later on, we did all the paperwork. But what I want to mean here is, you people are the one who can make things happen in a proper manner. So I thank all the clearing and forwarding agents in India and FFIAs for the good work that you all have been doing. And I wish you all that further you all will work hard and provide better logistic support to all the citizens of India and the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gaye. Now we have our last participant to make this presentation from Russia, Oleg Uzli. So he's a transit line manager, works with transit line, bringing a lot of 3PL experience, and specialization is Euro-Asian routes, effective route planning, fleet management, and trade corridor. Let's revert to Oleg. Over to you, Oleg.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank FFAI for the organization of such a great event and CCTT for the invitation. We are glad to be here and take part. My name is Oleg Izunin. I am area line manager in Wine Transit Line. We act on global transportation market as a shipping line and international multimodal service provider. Today I am pleased to present an overview of the current trends and prospects in cargo transportation between Russia and India, two countries whose trade relationship has significantly strengthened in recent years. Since 2022, the geopolitical landscape has changed dramatically. Russia has strategically reoriented its trade flows. And as a result, the share of Asian countries in our foreign trade reached almost 73%. At the same time, the trade turnover with Europe has dropped down on more than 16%. India, as a part of Asia, has also made a significant contribution in these changes. Now India is one of Russia's top partners, and this relationship continues to grow. In the five past years, trade turnover between Russia and India has grown by almost 9 times, reaching more than $70 billion in 2024. But it is not the end of growth. It is forecasted to reach about $78–91 billion of trade turnover this year. The long-term objective, which is firmly shared by both governments, is to reach $100 billion in turnover by 2030. So this goal looks rather real. Based on the indicated amounts, it is clear that the largest transportation volume is carried out by sea transport. It is also important to highlight that the main Indian ports, such as Mundra and Novaya Sheva, have a good trade balance. Nevertheless, air carriage is also plays an important role, especially in import. For instance, the Delhi Air Terminal takes the second place in import and it's close to Novaya Sheva Gulf. Russia has also close business connections with these terminals too. There are also changes in key import and export positions in the bilateral trade between Russia and India. The computer hardware and telecommunication instruments export has shown a huge growth. The computer hardware trading was not even included in the top 10 list in 2023, but it overtook the pharma and chemicals export and became the leader in 2024. This shows that India is not only industrial giant, but also a technology hub capable of providing advanced digital instruments. Import from Russia is traditionally based on petroleum, but it also has demonstrated a stable growth from $49 to $55 billion. Here you can see a general map of main roads currently used for cargo transportation between India and Russia. The Black Sea Road, calling at the port of Novorossiysk a strategically important logistic hub in south part of St. Petersburg port, Russia's main maritime gateway on the Baltic Sea. Several service options are available here. Direct service from Mundra and Novaya Sheva ports, service with transshipment in Egypt or Turkey, service with transshipment in Colombo, where carriers can connect cargo from west and east coast of India. St. Petersburg is the largest container port in Russia with a capacity of more than 4 million TEU per year. When we talk about growing markets, it's impossible not to mention the International North-South Transport Corridor, a project that could fundamentally reshape maritime trade flows. This is a strategic initiative designed to connect Russia with India and other countries of Middle East and Southeast Asia. Steady growth of trade turnover drives this corridor forward. We can divide this routing on 3 parts: Western, Trans-Caspian, and Eastern. Traditionally, Western routing is the most popular. The statistic for recent years you can see on the slide. The Eastern road via Russian East Gates, Vladivostok and Wrangel Bay ports. It offers an alternative solution to traditional European pathways. For example, shipping from Chennai to Vladivostok takes just 28 days, while routing via Suez Canal to St. Petersburg takes at least 40 days. Vladivostok and Wrangel Bay are one of Russia's largest ports, with a capacity of 1.7 million TEU per year, a cargo turnover of more than 100 million tons in 2024. Transit Line has an extensive network not only across the Indian subcontinent, but also in Mediterranean and Far East regions. That allows us to handle all mentioned transportation routes and provide end-to-end solutions to our customers. We serve all Indian locations and have sea services from main Indian ports, Mundra, Novaya Sheva and Chennai. We can deliver cargo to all main Russian gateways such as Vladivostok, Novorossiysk and St. Petersburg. Transit line has all necessary resources and can arrange feeder connection across India, door delivery, trucking, storage, LCR services and customs clearance in India and Russia. We have our own offices in Russia, China, Vietnam, Thailand, South Korea. Moreover, we have our agency network all over the world and provide not only sea services but also air delivery, domestic and international rail transportation and tracking, Ro-Ro sea service for OG and project cargo, warehousing and storage, LCL and FTL shipments and 3PL logistics. Transit was founded in 2007. It started as a small forwarding company mainly focused on the last mile and inland transportation for Vladivostok import cargo. Step by step, volume have been increasing and we understood that for perfect customer experience and cost-effective service, we need our own assets such as vessels, container yards, warehouses, trucks, trains, and etc. Following this principle, the company started to actively invest earnings into assets. It helped to develop our company and to expand variety of services that we provide. With the growth of our fleet, we simultaneously expanded our shipping network. New directions were launched, such as Vietnam-China services, Ro-Ro service between Russia and India, and deep sea service which connects China and west part of Russia. Thanks to our own assets, a wide network of highly qualified agents and customer-oriented approach, we are able to provide reliable and effective logistics solutions to our customers. Nowadays, Transit remains a privately owned company and leader of Russian logistics and forwarding market. Our current assets are described on the slide. I would like to take your attention that Transit is one of few companies operating in the Russian market able to arrange full circle of door-to-door delivery using only own assets. We find India as one of the most prospective and high-demand direction, which is interesting for both Russian and Indian businesses. And we do not stop our development in this region. I hope you found this presentation informative and each of you took away something useful. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Oleg. Now, since we have a paucity of time, we may not be able to take questions from the audience, but all the panelists will be available here, so you can interact during the tea time. I'm requesting Chairman, Mr. Vijay Kumar, to sum up this conference.
Thank you, Mr. Joshua. Thanks for all the panelists, and of course, Ms. Nora talked about this thing about world Indian logistics industries, about the time relay study, and we are in 2023 World Bank ranking of 38, and of course, we become, as per the latest World Bank, the fourth largest economy, crossing Japan. And of course, thank you for your wonderful presentation. And Mr. John Martin is talking about mainly on the green pathway of maritime thing, of course, and the railways, road, and other area. Of course, in India is using the energy, the trucking and the electric trucks, and almost all our warehouses are upgraded as automated system with robotic systems and electric forklifts and other equipments. And of course, thank you for your wonderful presentation. It is very useful for our members. And Mr. Vishal talked about the African free trade corridor, and our members are more interested for that. Definitely, you ask us to send the questions, and in a private window or in our further meetings, we will send you that the communication what our members want for that. Thank you very much for being with us, for giving a wonderful presentation on that. And Mr. Giri is talking about, of course, it's very closely, Bhutan and Indian government is associated with the cross-border transaction. And thank one of our members supported you for that in the crisis period. For, of course, all our freight forwarders and custom brokers are ready for that. And all our land customs, we are doing, our team is doing wonderful job. The same way we are getting that reciprocation from other country customs also. Thank you very much for that, and we are hope we will be the 25th in the coming future, the World Bank ranking in the logistics. And logistics cost, of course, everybody is trying together to bring a single digit for that. Thank you very much for that. And Mr. Golat is explained about our Russia, India, the details of our what you call about the trade and how the transportation are happening for that. And we had a wonderful session in the morning, and thank you very much, and good takeaway for our participants. And it's a very wonderful session, and I thank Mr. Joshua Kablu sir moderating this session wonderfully. Thank you very much.
Thank you all our panelists and moderator for this globally contextual session. I now request Dr. Joshua to felicitate the panelists one by one, please. Mr. Oleg Bujin. Mr. John Martin. Ms. Nora Dihar. And Mr. Vishal Mehta. Now I invite our advisor, Mr. A.V. Vijay Kumar, to felicitate our moderator, Dr. Joshua, please. Now let us all join for a group photograph on the dais. Everybody come forward, please. I would now request Shri A.V. Vijay Kumar to kindly felicitate our business session sponsors, Kale Logistics, for a few minutes, please. Team from Kale Logistics to join on stage, please. I now request EC member of FFI to kindly join on the dais and invite Dr. Mahendra Sharma, Honorable Group Pro Chancellor of Ganpat University, Gujarat. Mr. Nataraja, please.
By the time they come up, may I request Chairman and Chairman in Excel to kindly come on the dais for. Yeah, come. Chairman, sir. We will facilitate our trade associations. Some of them would have to leave. So, representations from Amit sir, Shanda sir. So, representatives from AMTROI, the Association of Multimodal Transport Operators in India. We have a representative from AMTROI here. Shanga sir, please. Arun Kumar, Mr. Arun Kumar. Priya Thomas from AMTROI. Anand Bhai.
May we hear from AMTROI? Anand Bhai, please. Shailesh Bhai, please.
Anybody else? Shantanu sir? Shantanu sir? Mr. Shantanu Vatkamkar? Next, we would like to facilitate the Air Cargo Agents, ACAI, Air Cargo Agents Association of India. Rovaji, please bring your colleagues along with you, sir. And now, Container Shipping Lines Association, CLSA India. CLSA, Container Shipping Lines, Mr. Baswani. Sir, please stay. Baswani ji. So just for information, we had to facilitate these trade associations now because we have a flight to catch. We will continue with our session. Other trade associations we will facilitate during the valedictory session.
Mr. Nataraja to come over, invite the guest.
Just a quick thanks for the invite, and I'd like to congratulate Dushyant, Shailesh, my friend Shankar, and the rest of the team for a wonderful convention that you had. My very best wishes for the many more more good years to come.